Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ganesh Srinivasan. I'm a program manager in the Windows Azure networking team, I should say Microsoft Azure networking team. And I've been with Azure for about 3 years, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all about ExpressRoute. It's a cool new service that we launched in preview about a month back, and it's something I believe is going to transform the way people consume and adopt the cloud. So with that said, I know I'm the last session for the day. I really appreciate you all taking the time coming to this session, and I'll try my best to make it worth your while. There's a small announcement that I'd like to make before I get started. For those who participated in the grand prize for the Windows Code Challenge, they were supposed to have a drawing by around 6 p.m. They're going to move it to 6:30, and it's going to be held in front of in the second floor in front of the DJ booth. So if you participated in that and you have a raffle, please go to that place after this session. So before I get started, I wanted to know how many of you have used Azure in the past? Wow, okay, awesome. Pretty much everyone's used Azure in the past. And how many of you have used virtual networks in the past? Okay, that's awesome. So I'm going to start off by just giving a quick refresher of what virtual networks are. I'm going to talk about point-to-site and site-to-site connectivity options that are available as part of virtual networks. I'll try to spend as little time as possible on those topics, and then we'll jump over to talk about ExpressRoute, okay? So that's what I have in the agenda, talk about the hybrid scenarios, and once we are done with that, I'll spend time on ExpressRoute. And if things go well, and if you guys are not tired, I'll do a quick demo of ExpressRoute as well. So let's look at all the connectivity options that we have in the platform and look at what they would typically be used for. So we introduced virtual networks with point-to-site capability sometime last year, and as of today, we announced general availability of this capability. It means you can use virtual networks with point-to-site capability with an SLA. And the same applies to dynamic routing gateways for the site-to-site VPN offering that we've been supporting in production for quite a while. Before I get into the details of each of these things, these services have been in production for, I'd say when I started working on virtual networks about 2 years back in production, we had a handful of people trying to use it. I think as of last week, I remember seeing 50 or 60,000 people having virtual networks in Azure, and quite a few of them have been using both the site-to-site option and point-to-site option. So it's really heartening to see people adopt these services and use them, and things are just going to get better from where they are right now with ExpressRoute. So with point-to-site, the main reason we built point-to-site capability with virtual networks is that it gives you the ability to have private IP level connectivity on demand without having to set up any infrastructure. You could connect to a virtual network in Azure using private IP addresses from anywhere, go through NATs, proxies, and firewalls. So it was a solution that we primarily targeted for startups, POCFX, dev test kind of scenarios, and so on. And let's say you're at the very early stages of the project and you're setting up a multi-tier application. I will talk about virtual networks and how it fits in the picture, but you have a private IP level connectivity into your virtual network in Windows Azure with this technology. The next step that you typically take would be to productize it, and if you're running your service, which has been tested and validated fully well, and you want to move it into production, you may want a lot more robust site-to-site connection between your premises and the cloud. And we offer virtual networks with point-to-site capability. Now, these two services can be contained and can meet all your connectivity needs when it comes to virtual machines or platform as a service services. But if you're really looking for enterprise-grade connectivity, and if you're looking to connect to all Microsoft services, we have this new service that we announced in February called ExpressRoute. This gives you a high throughput, secure, performant connectivity mechanism that completely bypasses the internet. So you can technically treat Microsoft Azure and all services hosted in Microsoft Azure as a seamless extension of your premises into the cloud. So if you're using a WAN provider, an MPLS provider such as AT&T or name the carrier, you can look at Azure as just a branch office in that network that you have with that carrier. And I'll spend majority of my time talking about ExpressRoute in great detail. I'll try to show you a quick demo of how it works and what are the steps involved in setting up this connectivity and how you can use it for a whole bunch of scenarios. But before we do that, let's talk about what we have with virtual networks. So a couple of years back, when we started working on infrastructure services, we realized that Azure had to think completely differently and re-architect a whole bunch of stuff that we had. We started off, believe it or not, right from redesigning the entire physical network in our data centers. We upgraded all the servers in all our data centers to have 10 gigabit Ethernet cards in the servers, a layer 3 multipath class network all the way up to the data center routers, a very unsubscribed network or undersubscribed network that you have in the data center, specifically because the traffic pattern that people would typically use completely changes when you talk about virtual private networks and hosting multi-tier applications in Windows Azure. The original PaaS offering was primarily, I would say, not so driven, and what not so really means is that traffic is in and out of the internet and not much traffic going between instances and tiers within Windows Azure. But with infrastructure services, if you're running SQL databases, you're running multi-tier applications, communications between various tiers of your application, you see a lot more traffic in that space rather than traffic in-out. And there are a few other challenges. When you typically try to build a multi-tier application, you typically have some sort of an identity mechanism as your glue that glues various tiers. And if you take, and for the sake of generalizing this, I would pick the SharePoint farm as a typical example of a multi-tier deployment. It has a front-end tier that needs to be highly available and scalable. You have an app server tier that performs its tasks. You have a dependency on an Active Directory domain controller to provide you with identity, and you have a database in the backend that needs to scale as well. So if you were to build an application that's very similar to SharePoint, that's what we took as an example when we started out with infrastructure services. You need a domain controller, DNS services, and so on. And when you think about all those things, you really want to create a private network in the cloud. And it would be cool if we would let you bring your own IP addresses into the cloud for you to create that network. And that's what virtual network is. It lets you create a virtual private network. It lets you carve out subnets in Windows Azure, and you can deploy your virtual machines and PaaS services into that virtual network in Windows Azure. Now, in a lot of cases, if you're just building services that are like an island running in the cloud facing an end customer through the internet, connectivity is not a problem. Every service has a public IP address, and you could reach your service through the public IP address for that particular service. Whereas if you're building a service that either is not fully running in Azure or has to cater to the needs of your services that are running in your premises or has a dependency on your premises, you need some sort of a secure private connectivity between your premises and the cloud. And with virtual networks, we support the ability to do site-to-site as well as point-to-site connectivity. And we'll look at that in a little bit more of detail. So with site-to-site, with point-to-site capability, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very lightweight solution. When we designed the solution, there were a few key principles that we had. You should be able to set up the connectivity in a very short period of time. It should not require the installation of extra software in your machines to have this connectivity. You should be able to connect from anywhere, and which means you should be in a coffee shop. You should be able to connect to your networks in Azure and be able to connect to the backends of every one of your services. And we wanted to make sure that as you upgraded your service to run it in production, you had this ability to have a site-to-site connection. So a couple of things really worked well for us. We had a built-in VPN stack in Windows that we could fully take advantage of for our service. So we actually took advantage of the Windows stack, and we just push a policy into the Windows stack when you actually configure the service. And by doing so, we just ask you to set up an SSTP, a secure socket tunneling protocol tunnel between your machine and the virtual network that you have running in Azure. And for any proxy or firewall sitting in the path, this just looks like an SSL connection that's being established to the cloud. And you can tunnel traffic through that SSL tunnel and reach any of the servers that you have in Windows Azure on their private IP addresses, which, by the way, you specified. So as I mentioned earlier, we announced point-to-site capability. It's a generally available service. We also made our dynamic routing or route-based VPN capabilities generally available. And we added a few more additional devices as of today. So we've added support for checkpoint and Fortinet VPN devices that you could use for your site-to-site VPN connectivity, in addition to Citrix, Cisco, Juniper, F5, and I think there's one more vendor. And you could also use Windows Server 2012 RRAS and OpenSwan as your soft VPN services to connect to that. So I talked about all this to just set the stage for the bigger thing, which is ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute is one of the first services we trademarked in Azure, and it's a cool new service where it gets you a direct private connectivity between your premises or your on-prem network in whatever shape and form it is in into Windows Azure. It's like using the HOV lane. You're not coming through the internet. You're bypassing the congestion and chaos that happens in the public internet. You come through a network that's managed for you by a carrier, or you could directly connect your infrastructure to ours at specific meet me locations that we've identified. So we've had virtual networks, the point-to-site capability and site-to-site capability out there, and we've had a pretty healthy adoption of this service. But then when you talk to an enterprise customer or someone who's really interested in running a mission-critical workload, a couple of things stand out. You're still connecting through the internet, so the public cloud is still an external entity that you don't trust. There's this question of trust in a lot of factors. First of all, you think you're coming through the internet, so there is not much of performance isolation or performance guarantees that are made in terms of connectivity. So no one gives you a guarantee on what your latency is or what your latency is going to be, what's the jitter in the network, or how much throughput you could get through the public internet, which is really scary when you're running a serious workload on that. Same way, just along the lines of there's no predictability, performance guarantee, there's also no predictability. Today you may have a very good connection. Tomorrow when you really want to push a lot of data, there's someone else trying to do the same thing and there's congestion in the network and you're down. Security is something that people are worried about purely because it's going through the internet, even though it's through IPsec. A lot of people worry about that. And if you're using your ISP to transfer data in and out, a lot of ISPs charge you based on your consumption, and your internet bill can run really high. And the other problem, and this is a serious problem that the Microsoft IT organization faced when they were trying to use our virtual network solution. We have internet proxies distributed across our campus, but when people started uploading stuff into Windows Azure and started using Windows Azure, that came out of the internet bandwidth, which meant it came at the expense of bandwidth that was going to be used for connecting to O365 for our email, or it was coming at the expense of people accessing the internet, which is really not something an IT organization wants to do, eating into the internet bandwidth, especially to adopt the cloud. So what people really wanted and what we really wanted to offer the customer is make access to Windows Azure as part of their WAN network so that it doesn't look like an external entity. You don't have to go through the internet. You don't have to use any of your internet edge bandwidth. And as a result of that, you get a lot of predictability. First of all, if you're coming to us through a carrier, they give you an SLA in terms of latency, throughput, and jitter, and so on. So there's some amount of predictability. You do buy certain amount of bandwidth from them, so they do give you performance guarantees on that. I'll talk about availability in detail a little bit down the road, and it's secure because it doesn't go over the internet. They guarantee isolation to the point where it enters the Microsoft network, and we make sure that we isolate your traffic and we carry it up to your virtual network or the service that you're using in Windows Azure from that point on in a very secure and isolated manner. This is just a different way of saying the same thing, so I'm going to skip that. So if I wanted to, based on what you've just seen, if you wanted me to restate the definition of a virtual network, it's essentially, ExpressRoute, it's a service that provides you with a dedicated private link into Windows Azure. It could be high throughput, which means you could push up to 10 gigabits per second with an ExpressRoute circuit for all your cloud services from your premises to the cloud. And it essentially makes you consume all cloud services that we have in Windows Azure. So we've been running this service for quite a while, and quite a few people have asked us, now, I want to use the cloud for a lot of things, but connectivity is one of the showstoppers. And the other showstopper or the other limiting factor is that virtual networks with site-to-site and point-to-site connectivity was restricted to purely virtual machines and our platform web and worker roles that we had in our platform. So what about connectivity to storage? If I'm really backing up terabytes of data or petabytes of data in the cloud, I need to have this secure private connection from my premises to the cloud. I'm trying to do some media transcoding. I'm a big media house. How do I get all my content into the cloud without having to go through the public internet? These are the kind of questions that we got, and we believe that if we were putting out ExpressRoute to solve the needs of compute, why not extend it to make sure it caters to the needs of all the other services that we support in Windows Azure? So essentially, you can think of ExpressRoute as a connectivity solution that goes beyond the needs of just virtual machines and PaaS services. You can use any Windows Azure service that's hosted on a public IP address using this ExpressRoute service. And what it enables you to do is it enables you to run your productivity applications on ExpressRoute. You could run an application truly in a hybrid mode, which means you could have your database sitting on-prem for compliance purposes. You could have your front end and app servers or your compute running in the cloud. You could do media transcoding and publishing and streaming and so on. You could move large volumes of data for big data and Hadoop kind of operations. Of course, dev test scenarios are automatically enabled for all those things. And we are working on essentially validating a whole bunch of workloads with first-party products such as StoreSimple. So if you used a product like StoreSimple, which backs up data into the cloud, this would be a great enabler for you to put all that together and essentially use your cloud as your bottomless storage. Now, I just mentioned that you are able to access all services, but there are a lot of people who are really, if you were to take a look at what ExpressRoute is and really slice it and dice it, ExpressRoute is essentially a mechanism that provides you the ability to create what we call as dedicated circuits. A dedicated circuit is essentially a logical connection between your premises and the cloud through either a connectivity provider, a WAN provider, or an exchange provider. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail. But what you get as part of your connectivity is two independent routing domains that are configured in a highly available mode. So what it means is you could use one routing domain and completely isolate private IP-based traffic. So if you have virtual networks and virtual machines running in Windows Azure that are truly an extension of your premises that have private IP addresses, you can deploy your virtual machines in them. You don't have a NAT in the path. You have a complete private IP level link between your premises and the cloud. You can set up your routers to publish your preferred prefixes to us. We use standard routing protocols to interact between our routers, and if it's you at the other end directly with your routers or with a carrier's router, who in turn will carry the routes through the networks to your routers. So that way you have a completely isolated private network. And that doesn't cater to all the needs. You do have services like storage, which are offered on a public IP address. You do want connectivity to them, but you do not want to mix routes for your private IP addresses with routes for your public IP addresses. So we completely create a second routing domain, create a second routing relationship where we would carry traffic from your premises to the cloud through that second path that we have. Now, the other cool thing to note is that you don't have to have this at your internet edge, which means if you're connecting to a service like Windows Azure Storage, which is hosted on a public IP, it doesn't have to go through your proxy and firewall and a NAT before it hits the internet, before it comes to storage. You could actually put it in the ExpressRoute circuit. We know that it's coming from a private IP address because of the routes that you publish. We will automatically NAT the traffic before we deliver it to these services. So you can actually integrate ExpressRoute into the core of your network, and that way your core is integrated with Azure rather than your edge being integrated with Azure. And if you did that, you would avoid the problem that our IT organization did face, which was consuming your internet bandwidth to connect to Windows Azure. You've completely bypassed your internet path. You pay a different rate for your VPN connectivity, and this will be covered as part of that rate. So it's a different alternate shorter circuit path with a higher availability SLA on that. So when I said public peering and private peering, I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about what public peering meant and what private peering meant in better terms. So let's take this particular example. You have a whole bunch of services on-prem that are trying to access, let's say, a SharePoint farm in Windows Azure. The SharePoint farm in this diagram is sitting in this gray virtual network that's running in Windows Azure. Now, you can have a domain controller that's a read-only domain controller with the master running on-prem. You could have SQL servers that are clustered between your prem and the cloud that has all the databases. You could have your app servers running in the cloud, and so on. You can also build PaaS applications the same way, where your web and worker roles sit in a virtual network, and you can have your databases sit anywhere else in your premises, or it could be running in SQL Azure, or it could be in storage, and so on. In these configurations, we give you complete control over how you want to route packets between these services within Azure or even outside of Azure into your premises. So if you're really worried about security and compliance and all that, and you really want to monitor traffic between, let's say, your PaaS services that are running in your virtual network and, say, SQL Azure, you could choose to get all the traffic sent back to your premises and then redirected back to Windows Azure. And there will be a little bit of a performance penalty, but it would be negligible and not significant for you to worry about that in a very big way. You could do that. The other cool thing that it enables is, if you want to only extend your backend infrastructure into the cloud, there's always a concern that the cloud is an open entity and you could automatically reach out to the public cloud. We do enable what we call as forced tunneling, which means you publish default routes to us. We would say that I don't know what the internet is. Everything to me is your on-prem or whatever your next hop router is. So we push all the traffic back to you at that point in time. There is no risk of traffic from the cloud leaking out to the internet. It will always make its way back to your premises. And then if you choose to put it in the internet, you could route it through your internet edge for your organization. That's another cool thing that you can do. So all it takes is essentially setting up a logical connection and then setting up the routing between your infrastructure and Windows Azure. So let me now talk about the two flavors. I mentioned WAN providers and exchange providers. Let me talk a little bit about what it actually means and how it's different from our site-to-site VPN. As I said before, site-to-site VPN always goes through the public internet, whereas you can bypass the internet either by working through an exchange provider or a WAN provider or a network service provider. So in this particular case, an exchange service provider, let's pick an example. Equinix is an example of an exchange provider that we're working with. They host these massive fiber hotels and data centers in various locations in the world, and people get to put their gear in there or get connectivity extended into that location and then have connectivity extended into the cloud. What we as Microsoft have done is we've placed our routers in Equinix facilities. We've set up massive banks of routers in that location where people can actually connect to us through Equinix in that location. So if you are a customer who's either co-located with an exchange provider like Equinix and have your data center in an Equinix site, you can directly route your data from your data center in your premises into Windows Azure through that Ethernet exchange in Equinix. I'll talk a little bit more in detail on that. There's another option where we call it exchange provider at this point in time, but it's essentially an Ethernet connection. You could work with someone like a level 3 and actually have them draw Ethernet connectivity from your premises into an Equinix location and then connect it into our infrastructure. So when you do that, you have an Ethernet connection from your premises up to Equinix, and Equinix hands off the connection to us in a very secure manner. And at that point in time, we take the traffic and we route it to the Azure data center through the Microsoft backbone. So at that point in time, we have the layer 2 connection established by Equinix. You set up routes with our routers, and we have a layer 3 connection established. Let's move on to the scenario 3 that we call the network service provider here. In this particular case, let's say you're a large organization and you have an MPLS network with an AT&T or a level 3 or anyone of that scale. The key advantage is that we bring connectivity to you, and there is zero configuration or extra networking related configuration that you need to do to enable this connectivity. You could just tell AT&T to link your on-prem network or your VPN network with them into Windows Azure, and we would actually carry the traffic, and we would pair our networks with AT&T's network, and the connection is securely handed off to us. So that's the key difference. And there are also a few other additional differences. With the exchange provider mode, it's purely a layer 2 cross connection that's been facilitated. So you have a lot more control and flexibility on what you want to do with the cloud. So you have a complete, you can deploy a router or a pair of routers and essentially completely configure these pair of routers the way you want, publish the route prefixes that you want to us, and route packets the way you want between your infrastructure and the cloud. And if you're trying to push large volumes of data, this is a lot more flexible, and you can go up to 10 gigabits per second, because typically MPLS VPN networks don't offer bandwidth up to 10 gigabits per second. With this technology, you could actually physically connect a 10 gig cable or a pair of 10 gig cables into Equinix and have them connect that into the Azure infrastructure, and we would carry traffic that's arriving on that 10 gig pipe into any of your Windows Azure services. Whereas with the network service provider approach, you really don't need to deploy any extra gear. If you're already using an MPLS provider, they would have deployed a CE router in your infrastructure, or you would have deployed it and they would have added it to their VPN network. As an artifact of that, you're already in the AT&T or the MPLS network of the carrier, and you'll just have to add Azure into that VPN network. At that point in time, zero config changes to your VPN, zero hardware installation. You're part of the WAN, and Azure is just another site in your WAN network. We don't offer up to 10 gigs here. We go up to a gigabit per second, and there's a slight difference in the way we do billing for this, and I'll talk about that when we talk about prices for this service. So as of today, we've announced partnerships with Equinix, AT&T, and Level 3. I've listed Level 3 both in the exchange provider side as well as the network service provider side, because Level 3 offers Ethernet circuits there. They'll choose to carry traffic from your premises into an Equinix location and hand it off to us, as well as if you were already using Level 3's MPLS network, we would add to that. So this is the list that we have today, and you'd pretty soon see a lot more carriers and a lot more exchange providers as well as locations show up in the next few weeks. So we are going to really expand the service pretty soon, and we're going to make sure that majority of the large-scale providers around the world are captured and covered as part of the agreements that we are working with carriers and exchange providers. Now, let's talk about Equinix in particular and what actually happens when you have to essentially establish connectivity between either your routers that you've co-located in that location, or you have something in your premises that you've extended into that location. Let's pick the harder case where you don't have anything in Equinix, but you want to essentially have the secure private connectivity from your premises to the cloud. You could do one of two things. You could go work with Level 3 or pick your local metro Ethernet provider, have them extend a connection from your premises into an Equinix location. And it's a physical fiber or a physical connection that's terminated at the Equinix facility. You can choose to put a router at that location or choose to use your routers in your premises to manage routes on that particular connection. You would then ask Equinix to physically connect your port that's terminated in their site into a huge Ethernet exchange switch that they maintain and run. So you plug your port into that switch, or how many of ports you want based on the bandwidth needs into that switch. And we've onboarded tens of gigabits per second worth of capacity, in fact, hundreds of gigabits worth of seconds worth of capacity between our infrastructure, between the core Microsoft network and the Equinix network. So I'll talk about the software enablement process. You would order an ExpressRoute circuit between your premises and the cloud, and we will in turn give you a key that you would pass on to Equinix. And under the covers, Equinix and us have automation that kicks in, and it automatically configures our routers, and in a matter of minutes, you have an ExpressRoute circuit that's set up between your premises and the cloud. You then configure routes, and once you've established those routes, we know how to send packets back and forth between your premises and Azure. Now, the cool thing is, we built it in a way where you don't have to worry about doing this manually every time. You can have one connection that you could have that covers multiple cloud providers who offer services in that location. So you're not locked into any cloud service provider. The second thing is it's all software. So every time you wanted to connect or disconnect, you don't have to go pull a card out of that location. And to us, it helps us operationalize this service in a very efficient way, because every time someone wants to connect to us, we don't have to issue a letter of authorization, pull a wire, and plug it into a router, which is manually intensive. We just exchange configurations, and in a matter of seconds, we multiplex you into a 10 gig port and have it handed off to us, and we can carry all your traffic into Windows Azure from that point in time. The other big difference is that we've extended the edge of the Microsoft core network into Equinix sites. So the moment it gets handed off to us from the Equinix Ethernet exchange, it is in the Microsoft core network. We don't take it from them in that location and use someone else to haul the traffic back to Windows Azure. So it's entered the Microsoft network from the point it's handed off to us from Equinix. Now, let's see what it takes for you to basically set this connectivity up. You may have extended your Ethernet connectivity into Equinix, and let's say you've had your physical cable plugged into the Equinix Ethernet exchange. You'd have to sign up for ExpressRoute. It's a preview feature today. You can go to the Windows Azure portal and say, I want to try this in preview, and we will enable you for this preview. Once we've enabled you for a preview, you can essentially make a request for a connectivity. So you could first go make a call to say, list all the service providers that are supported in Windows Azure today. In response, we will say, we have Equinix and AT&T and Level 3 and so on in various locations. And these are all the various bandwidth options that we support with each of these partners. So you'd go and pick an option. In this particular case, let's say I just wanted a 200 megabits per second circuit through Equinix in Silicon Valley. I would make a request saying, I need connectivity into my premises through Equinix in Silicon Valley, and I need a 200 megabits per second link. In response to that, we give you what is called as a service key. It's a unique connectivity identifier that we would use to essentially provision your connection. It's just a GUID that you just take it from us and enter into the Equinix portal. So when you pass it on to Equinix, Equinix is then going to say, OK, I got this number. Let me just ask Microsoft what it actually means. And we have automation and integration between our systems and Equinix's systems that they query into our system, get all the information they need to know about you in terms of, we don't exchange your billing information or your identity. We just tell them that we've identified you to go on this particular port. This is the amount of bandwidth that you asked for, and this is how we are going to identify you between our infrastructure. Once that information has been exchanged, both of us go and configure our infrastructure appropriately and set it up. At the end of it, you have the layer 2 cross connection set up. Then you would call us and say, I need to set up routes between my router in Equinix or in my premises and the Windows Azure routers. So let me set up routes. So I'd make a bunch of API calls to set up the routes, and at the end of that, my routes are up, and if you're using storage or any other services, you have all the routes to connect to these services automatically published into the network. And for the private peering part, if you create virtual networks, you'd start linking the virtual networks you already have with these ExpressRoute circuits. So when you link your virtual network to the ExpressRoute circuit, we would publish the prefixes for that particular virtual network through these ExpressRoute circuits. And you would have routes going back to your premises, so you know how to reach these virtual networks from your premises. Now, there's one real cool thing that we did, which is we always configure our routers with Equinix in an active-active configuration, which means we always have 2 redundant links in load sharing mode, each of them capable of giving you the full bandwidth that you asked for. So if there is an infrastructure outage, either on our side or your side or Equinix's side, you always have a redundant path in that particular location that carries the traffic. So we don't have to worry. You don't have to really worry about us, doing periodic scheduled maintenances or router upgrades or Equinix taking care of their routers or if there's a power outage on either one of our sides. So we've taken care of that by using this active-active configuration that we've set up for ExpressRoute. Now, with someone, if you're using AT&T or someone like that who's your MPLS VPN provider, all you would need to do is essentially call them up if you have the right flavor of your VPN with them. And I think with AT&T, it's AVPN. You can just call them and tell them, I need to basically integrate this into my Windows Azure service. So they have a product called NetBond, and each carrier that we announce a partnership with would have a similar product where just the way you did with Equinix, you'd go and request a service key from us, and you'd enter the service key in the AT&T NetBond portal or the Level 3 portal. And as soon as you enter that, the same process of them contacting us to exchange information happens. The one additional thing that happens is we don't expect you to worry about or configure routes. AT&T on your behalf will contact us, provide us information of AT&T's routers, and we will set up a peering relationship between AT&T's routers and our routers. So we'll automatically publish all the routes into AT&T, and AT&T will take care of carrying the routes in their network and the traffic through their network, and will hand it off to you at your premises or whatever your preferred router is. So the whole process is automated. It's exactly the same as what you saw previously. The only thing is you don't have to worry about setting up routers or touching your routers for that matter. Now, the whole process of me showing you this is a lot longer than what it actually takes to set up ExpressRoute. So I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm going to be showing you how to set up ExpressRoute with a whole bunch of PowerShell commandlets. I'll do that as a demo so it doesn't look as scary as this. So it's extremely straightforward and a very simple process to set up connectivity. So let me quickly switch to showing you that demo. So I'm going to be using PowerShell for this, and if you're not used Windows Azure PowerShell, you have to do some basic setup of your subscription. The first thing you do is you would load the PowerShell modules that you have for Windows Azure so that you can use the PowerShell commandlets for Windows Azure. The next thing that you would actually do is we've added a new module for ExpressRoute. You would import that module, and both these modules are available from the downloads page for windowsazure.com. You could go to windowsazure.com, download the PowerShell module, and it installs both of them in your machine. You then have to use your subscription ID and a certificate for authentication. Once you've run this and authenticated yourself, you're actually in good shape to make any PowerShell calls that you want in your subscription. So if I'm going to set up a new connection, the first thing I want to do is know who are all the service providers who offer service in Windows Azure. And I do that by calling Get Azure Dedicated Service Provider. It tells me that I have AT&T, Equinix, and Microsoft IT for our internal services, since I have an internal subscription. We've integrated, the one cool thing that we did was we talk a lot about the cloud, but we wanted our own IT organization to consume the cloud and have them move all their services from their on-prem data centers into the cloud. So whatever we did with, for example, AT&T is exactly what we've done with our IT organization. We've not done a one-off. We've exactly replicated that with them. They have a pair of routers that pair with our routers or in a whole bunch of locations, just like how AT&T and Equinix and all those guys are doing. And they've essentially connected our entire Microsoft's corporate network into the cloud. So if any team wants to do their dev test, they could go to our IT organization, fill out a questionnaire in a cool page, and at the end of that process, you can have your virtual network that's running in Azure that's connected to Windows Azure through ExpressRoute. And we've actually had this running in production for a while now, and they're starting to migrate a whole bunch of hundreds of virtual machines a month into Windows Azure using ExpressRoute. So it actually works. So for the sake of this demo, I'm going to try to create a 200 megabits per second circuit through Equinix in Washington, DC. Okay? So the way I do it is new Azure dedicated circuit, circuit name, so this is a request that I made saying, just create a circuit for me, and it's a logical request. It takes about 15, 20 seconds, and what we do under the covers when we run this is we go scout out for all the routers that we have there in that particular location. We see which router has capacity and how much capacity we have in that, and which port in that particular router or which set of ports. I said we configure them in active-active configuration. So we make sure that they're in completely independent routers, and they're configured identically so that you get this redundancy. So once we've done that, we reserve 200 megabits per second on every port on those two routers just for your purpose. And if we know we have that capacity, we say, yes, let me give you a service key which you can use to identify this particular circuit. Now, you can take this circuit into Equinix's portal, and unfortunately, I don't have the ability to show you that demo fully right now. If you entered the service key, they would essentially provision the cross connect, and at the end of the day, you see the service provider provisioning state. It would move from not provisioned to provisioned. And if I had someone from Equinix on the call or on stage with me, that whole operation would actually happen in less than like 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is the time it takes to have this provisioned and set up. Now, I've already got a whole bunch of circuits that I've pre-created. And if you wanted to look at all the circuits that you have, you can run this call saying get Azure dedicated circuit. It lists out all the circuits that you have. And this is my test subscription where I'm testing everything with Equinix. And I'm going to test 10 gig performance with this. So I'm going to pick one of the circuits for the sake of this demo, which has already been pre-created. I'm going to use this Equinix DC test circuit, the 3E1, to show you the rest of the parts of the demo. Now, when I said we have to basically set up routes, I've already configured routes. The get operation is going to show all the parameters that I've set. So I'll explain this in a little bit. So basically what you are going to do is we are going to set up a BGP session, Border Gateway Protocol, which is a standard routing protocol, to establish a routing relationship between your routers and our infrastructure. For you to have this clean connection to be made, it has to come on a particular VLAN ID. So you specify the VLAN ID that you want to use to essentially set up this BGP session on. So in this particular case, it's VLAN ID 100. When you set up routing, you actually have to specify what is known as an AS number. It's a unique identifier to identify a routing domain. Microsoft's routing domain for this ExpressRoute service is 12076. We provide you that. You provide us what you want to use. In this particular case, it's 65001. We've picked 2 ports that we've used that we're going to route you on. It means nothing to you, but it means a lot to us in Equinix, and that's how we provision the circuit. We also need IP addresses to basically set up the routing interfaces on our side and on your side. So we take a bunch of subnets from you to basically set up IP addresses for these routing infrastructure. So you set up 2 routing sessions for your ExpressRoute circuit. This ExpressRoute circuit, I said access type is private, carries the private IP address traffic. So anything from your virtual network into Windows Azure comes through this particular circuit. And the one cool thing is, in this particular case, the circuit is actually sitting in Washington, DC. But I could actually connect any virtual network in any of the US sites to this circuit, and we carry the traffic from that particular data center to Washington, DC to hand it off to you. So through one entry point, you have connectivity to all the data Microsoft Azure regions in that particular continent. The same thing applies to our public peering services as well. So you do the same thing. The only difference here is we used VLAN ID 101 to carry traffic to this public IP address. We have a completely isolated routing domain. That way, if you did not want public IPs to leak directly into your global routing table, you could selectively leak them or do whatever you want. And when you set this BGP session up, we automatically basically configure our routers to send all the public IP addresses that Azure owns. So it's not just storage, media services, websites that you care about. It's the public IP addresses of your own services. If you run a cloud service in Azure, it gets a public IP address. That's routable through ExpressRoute from your premises. So this is how you set up. And just the way you do a get, you do a new Azure BGP peering with exactly the same parameters. And it takes about 30 seconds. And within that 30 seconds, we configure our routers, and once our routers are fully programmed with all the information to set up these routing sessions, we give you a success. There's one more thing that you can do, which is you can authenticate your BGP session with an MD5 hash. You specify the hash, and we will program that so when the routers exchange BGP information, they are authenticated. So in this particular case, I have these BGP sessions set up. The next thing I want to do is see if there are any virtual networks that are actually linked to my ExpressRoute circuit. So there's an API that lets you link your virtual network that you already have running in Windows Azure to your ExpressRoute circuit that you've set up. The call to set it up would be new Azure dedicated circuit link, service key, and the VNet name. It would link. And what this linking actually does is it extends your BGP session or the routing session from the routers that we have at our edge all the way into your virtual network. So every time you change an address range, add a branch office or anything like that, you don't have to touch or muck around with your virtual network. The routes flow seamlessly into the virtual network, and we know how to route to any new prefixes that you add into your network. Now, I have a virtual network called Equinix DC that I've created in the US East data center. And I also have a bunch of test virtual machines that I'm running in a cage in Equinix. So assume you are in Equinix, Ashburn, and you're actually connecting to the US East data center. Let's see how good connectivity is. I'm going to ping a Windows server. It's in this literally single-digit millisecond latency. It's if I run it for a long period of time, it would typically be roughly around 2 milliseconds would be the average, and that's pretty much what you get between various clusters in Windows Azure. So if you're talking between a compute service and a storage service, even within Azure, the latency is approximately the same. It's slightly lesser there, but it's around about the same ballpark. So it opens up a whole bunch of scenarios from the platform perspective. So in this particular case, if your latency was this low, you could technically put a filer or a huge disk subsystem in a cage if you were worried about storing your data in Windows Azure, and have compute use that storage. So you could put a NetApp appliance or any sort of an appliance sitting in a cage in that location, have them mounted to your Azure virtual machines like iSCSI drives, do that. It gives you the performance to do exactly that. So if you're doing SQL clustering or anything like that, or anything that requires shared storage, this amount of latency is what it takes. And we could go up to 10 gigs per ExpressRoute circuit, and we don't limit the number of ExpressRoute circuits you can have per region. So if you wanted 40 gigs into US East, create 4 10-gig circuits, and you have 40 gigs of capacity coming into Azure through Equinix in that particular location. And through that 40 gigs, you can connect to any of the Azure services across that continent. So if you enter in Ashburn, you could connect to US East, West, North Central, and South Central through that particular peering session that you set up. So the same thing applies to Europe. If you connect in one of the European locations, which we'll announce pretty soon, you would have connectivity to all the data centers we have in Europe, and likewise in Asia. So this low latency and high throughput now completely opens up what you can do with the cloud. It's probably faster than what you get between 2 branch offices in your network. So that's how optimized and private the connectivity is between your premises and the cloud. I'm going to switch back to the slides for a few more slides. This service is in preview. We've had it in preview for only about a month now. Demand has been unbelievable, or people are really excited to see this, and we've got so many requests for using this that we're going to expand pretty soon. You can expect us to have a couple of peering locations for every Azure region pretty soon, and we're actively engaged with a lot of partners. We are today partnering with AT&T, Level 3, and Equinix. You'll see announcements with a lot more carriers and a lot more locations and providers, exchange providers pretty soon. So we hope to be making this service generally available with an SLA on connectivity, which you typically don't get from any of our competing cloud platform providers. And this is how much you'd pay for the service. If you're using Equinix and you want a 1 gigabit per second port, it's essentially 2 1 gig ports in active configuration coming into Windows Azure. Technically, you can push up to 2 gigs. We allow you to push up to 2 gigs of data. If you pay $600 a month, you get 15 terabytes of egress traffic. That is, ingress is completely free. You can push how much ever data you want into the cloud. You can get up to 15 terabytes of data out. Beyond that, there's a data overage. And the same way, we have a model for 10 gig. We also have sub 1 gig bandwidth options that we've not talked about here, but we have a 200 megabits per second and a 500 megabits per second option with Equinix. with the network service providers like AT&T, we start off at 10 megabits per second and go up to a gigabit per second. And the fundamental difference in the model is that when you get a pipe, we don't meter you for bytes in and bytes out. It's unlimited. You can saturate it for as long as you want, and you would be actually, we won't charge you any overages associated with that. And we chose a different billing model because it offers price predictability, and enterprises who care about price predictability in their IT bill prefer this route. So it's a new service. We've put some tutorials and basic instructions on how to get started here. It's an exciting service, and we've been getting a lot of demand. If you're really interested in this, please come and talk to me, and I can help you get started with the preview for this service, and we can hook you up. It's, I believe, a service that's going to transform the way you adopt Windows Azure, and it's going to be a game changer for us. That, I'm open to questions. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, you can go to the mic and ask your question.
So Ganesh, excellent talk. 2 questions. One is, can you explain that the parallel pairing where you're going to a blob service, but that's a public endpoint?
If you're going to storage,
yes.
So what we typically do is, let's say you have your on-premises network, and you're building some application that wants to either back up in blob store, right? You order an express route circuit. We set up 2 routers identically. So the VLANs and the routes that we just talked about and looked at in the APIs get configured on each of the routers. So there are 2 parallel paths in the same location to get to Azure in 2 different routers that have power and fault isolation and all that done. Now, once you enter, you're in the core network, we know how to get you to your destination. So through each of these links, we advertise the routes for all the Windows Azure services back to you. So if you say, mine is this blob dot whatever is the URL, you enter that, DNS automatically resolves it to that public IP address, and you would have that connectivity extended into your premises. It automatically knows how to route packets because the router knows how to get to the next hop. It's typical layer 3, how you jump between router to router and you know how to get to the final destination. If one router completely goes down, BGP typically has timers. You can set a timer for your BGP session to time out. If it times out, you know that link is down. Since we've not configured it in failover mode, there is no failover necessary. The packet automatically takes the second path because that second path automatically has the routes. Once this fails over, the rest of the network BGP converges and says, okay, don't take this path because it's down, take this path. And when that path comes back up, it starts re-advertising the prefixes, and that path is also available. And load sharing in a way is good. You're not actually loading a link too much. You have 2 links that share the load. So at any given point in time, it's active, and you can distribute traffic and do ECMP in your network.
But you do end up, because blob storage is that a public WIP address?
Yes, you do land up on the WIP. If you're starting with a private IP address,
right.
A private IP address, you can have 10.1, someone else can have 10.1. We want to isolate you and make sure we keep you separate. So we NAT you in our infrastructure. We identify you with a unique IP address or 2 IP addresses. We identify them with a separate IP address. That IP address is routable in the Microsoft network. So if you send a packet from 10.1 to your storage account, it gets NATed to some other IP address. Storage sees it as though traffic is coming from that IP address and returns the packet to that. We then NAT it back and send it into your service.
So it is not going over public internet?
It is not going over the public internet at all.
And then one second quick question. You said when you were defining the exchange model and the service provider model, you said none of your competitors have an equivalent offering. I mean, the Equinix has been available on the competitive platform.
No. I didn't mean to say that. Equinix offering is offered by a lot of cloud providers.
That's right.
The key thing I said was no one offers you an SLA in terms of connectivity.
I see.
So we are going to put an availability number. If we don't meet that, we're going to refund you for your connectivity, which our competitor typically doesn't offer.
Thank you.
Just one question. If you're an enterprise that has MPLS locations, do you guys have DNS patterns that you would normally follow? Like, let's say, if I have a public-facing Azure service and I want to enhance it and I want to bring it in, because I'm going to have data that I don't want it to be public anymore on the public internet.
So the initial phase that we're going to be doing for some services, and services like SQL databases already has that, is we're still going to have it on a public IP address with the same public DNS resolution A record, but we're going to allow you to set IP ACLs on those endpoints and say only allow traffic from this NATed IP that we use to identify you.
Okay, but on-prem, do I have to start creating a bunch of CNAME records for my internal?
You typically don't, because recursive resolution gets the same name translated into your DNS.
Okay, thank you.
If your organization has, let's say, dozens of Azure virtual networks,
Yes.
does this solution support
So
that?
the
And are there
same circuit can support many virtual networks. All you do is you start linking every virtual network into that same circuit. When we launch this service initially, it is going to be only all the virtual networks in the same subscription. But a few months down the road, we will add the capability to extend, link virtual networks that are in different subscriptions into the same express route circuit.
Do you have to have a different?
They should not have
connection?
overlapping IP addresses. That's the only restriction.
I'm sorry.
They should not have overlapping IP addresses.
Agreed. Do you have to open up a connection for each virtual
No,
network?
you create one express route circuit. So you have one service key that you activate with Equinix or AT&T. And then I showed you this PowerShell commandlet that actually links. So if you look at the last commandlet that I did that said get Azure dedicated link for that service key, today I just have one virtual network link to that. I can say new Azure dedicated circuit link, specify the service key and a second VNet name. That second VNet name will be linked to that.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't set a limit on that. You could link all your virtual networks to the same circuit. And the other benefit is you can have one in US East and one in US West, have the same virtual network linked to two different circuits. So you have geo-redundancy in path to getting back to your premises.
Thank you.
Cool. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.